ready now for opening statements. Okay. So with that, I'll invite Mr. Hoek to give an opening statement on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Good morning, everyone. Was introduced to some of you before. My name is Frits. I'm one of the prosecutors on this case. And this is the people's opening statement. Right? Later you're going to hear a closing argument, and this is an opening statement. And the purpose of the opening statement is to kind of give you an overview of what the evidence is going to be, what you're going to be presented with. So that way when you're hearing the evidence during trial, you understand where things fit into the big picture of things. During trial, due to scheduling issues or all kinds of things, witnesses can come in a jumbled order in there. And if you don't understand how they fit into the picture of things, it can be difficult to understand their testimony and the scope of what's going on. Some of the witnesses in this case are going to be people who are unhoused, and so they're going to be brought in just when they can be located and brought into court to testify. And so they may come in the middle of another witness's testimony or something like that. And so if we're doing a good job in this opening statement, you'll have a good idea of how everyone fits into what's going on. And so we're first going to look from the kind of 1,000-foot perspective of what is the basics of what's going on in the case. And from the 1,000-foot perspective, it starts on April 27th of 2023 when David Breaux is found dead on a bench in Sycamore Park in the city of Davis. Or sorry, in Central Park in the city of Davis. So David Breaux is sitting upright on a bench in a grassy area. Behind him is a play structure, and you can see that there's a metal railing fence behind him. And then he's surrounded by grass on the front. Now, at the time that he's found, rigor mortis is set in, and he's been dead for a while. He's found that morning of the 27th, and so he's killed sometime on the night of the 26th to the 27th. And he's on a bench that's surrounded by grass in kind of all areas about 50 feet, and it's got this railing to the back. And it's a dark area of the park. The only lighting is this kind of, you have a light there and a light there in the kind of play area of the park, and there's trees in between the lighting. And so where David Breaux is on the bench is dark. Now, the police are called. The police do an investigation, and then 3 nights later, on the night of April 27th, you have Kareem Abu Najim, who's killed in Central Park. Now, Kareem lives in the housing that's on the left side of the freeway from Central Park, or from Sycamore Park. He lives in the housing there, and he rides his bike through down Sycamore Lane, through Sycamore Park, over the pedestrian bridge, into where he lives to go home. And as he's riding his bicycle down the path, he's attacked and he's stabbed to death. The police respond, the police conduct an investigation as well, and then there is a third stabbing that happens, so Kareem is killed on the night of April 29th, and then you have a third stabbing on the night of May 1st of 2023. And so on that night, Kimberly Guillory is sleeping in her tent, is sitting in her tent that's next to a PG&E substation in the city of Davis off of L Street. She's sitting in her tent kind of on a tablet when somebody stabs her through the sidewall of the tent, and the knife goes through the tent and into her body. She's stabbed twice, including a laceration to her kidney, and she's taken to the hospital where she survives. So from that 1,000-foot perspective, we're going to go down to the kind of 100-foot level as to what's going on, what is the evidence that you're going to expect in this case. And understand the evidence, to understand why this is going to be proven to be a deliberate, willful, and premeditated murder, you're going to need to go back further than when this kind of first comes to light, before David is found in the park. We're going to go back to December 5th of 2022. Now, December 5th of 2022, Carlos Dominguez is a student at UC Davis, and he's struggling. He's not doing well in school. His girlfriend broke up with him months prior. He no longer has a job. His roommates are asking him about rent. And on December 5th, he has finals. So on December 5th, he has this kind of top final for his EDU 110 class at 10:30 a.m. And he's scheduled for several other finals that same day, the same week, going to December 6th, December 8th, and December 9th. So his next final is December 6th at 3:30. Now, we know that during this time frame, he's not spending all this time studying because Carlos Dominguez goes on to Amazon and conducts a couple searches. He searches on Amazon on his account for combat knife, hunting knife, and combat knife. And he makes a selection of a double-edged dagger that he purchases from Amazon. And it's listed on Amazon as Smith & Wesson SWHRT 9B 9-inch high carbon SS fixed blade knife with 7.2-inch dual edge blade and TPE handle for outdoor, tactical, survival, and everyday carry. Now these two images that you see here are of the knife as displayed by Amazon, and you're going to hear testimony from Christopher Kamada with the DA's office high-tech unit that these are images that he recovered from the defendant's phone from December 5th. So these are images that he's seeing while he's shopping, and these are not just stock images of the phone of the knife. These are the ones that he's looking at when he's making the purchase. Now the actual knife is going to be brought into court, and you're going to see it. Now for demonstrative purposes during court, we're going to be using a different knife at times. Equal 37, and it's the exact same make, model knife. This one's got blue tape on the handle. And it comes in a sheath, and it has a double-edged blade. Now this particular knife, the one with the blue edge, again, is not the actual knife, and it's been dulled with the grinder so that people in court can handle it and lawyers don't end up cutting themselves. And so it's going to be able to be displayed and moved around in court without creating a risk to people. And this is the knife that he purchased all the way back on December 5th. From December 5th, we move into the spring semester. In the spring semester, Mr. Dominguez is not doing well in school. The university is in the process of expelling him from the university. He's filed appeals with the university to appeal his expulsion, and he's still technically a member of UC Davis, still a student there, but he's on the track to be expelled. Then on April 19th of 2023, he sends a text message to that girl that broke up with him. He sends a text message, "Hey, what are you doing? You free tonight? You down to hang?" And she answers, "Out of respect for my girlfriend, I don't know if it's a good idea for us to hang." And he answers, "All right." So her response is on the 20th, and then he answers, "All right," on the 20th. So the 20th, when he gets this, again, rejection from this girl, when he's on the verge of being dropped out, we have 5 days later to April 25th, and we can see what he's doing that day. He's scheduled for classes. He has, this is a Tuesday. He has Tuesday and Thursday classes at UC Davis, and we have the start times for the classes, and this is going to be an exhibit that you get. You'll get his scheduled classes for that. You're also going to get expert testimony from Christopher Kamada about his forensic analysis of the defendant's cellular phone. And he's going to talk about how the cellular phone saves data for 7 days about a person's location and movements, and he's going to talk about how that works. And you're going to see exhibits that Mr. Kamada prepared showing maps of the area with little pins on them following the location. And Mr. Kamada is going to talk about how phones figure out where they are, how they save that information, how long they save the information for, and how reliable different sources of location information is. And Mr. Kamada is going to talk about how for the exhibits prepared by Mr. Kamada, he's only using what is known as native location data, meaning that the phone is determining what its location is and then recording that. He's also going to talk about the precision estimates of this location data. So the phone records when it records location, also how accurate is that information. And Mr. Kamada's exhibits are going to be limited to location points where it has accuracy of 65 meters or less. Okay? And so sometimes the phone has very large precision estimates of over 2 kilometers, and those are going to be points that are left out because they could be in a very wide area, and he's limiting points to points of 65. And so it'd be kind of like the reporter's table is over there, and if we had a point on the reporter's table and we said Mr. Vanderhook is within 5 meters of the reporter's table, that would be correct, even though the point is on the reporter's table and I'm actually over here. It can give a precision, and so when you see these points, these are not necessarily the exact spot that he was, but it's within 65 meters or less. So on the 25th, we see Mr. Dominguez at his home at 7062 Hawthorne, and he moves down to the UC Davis campus in the area where his classes are. And we have him then moving back again from the UC Davis campus up to his house, all consistent with his activities as a UC Davis student going to courses. Now, on the night of the 25th, what we have here is a power log from the defendant's phone. And so Mr. Kamada is going to talk about this as well, how the phone records when it's powered on and when it's powered off, and then it stores that data, and that when you manually power off the phone, it stores it for a certain amount of time, and when the phone dies of a battery, battery loss, that it's recorded different, and it's recorded for a lesser amount of time. But on the night of the 25th, the phone dies of battery loss at 11:49 p.m., and these stars here at the bottom of the chart are indicating that it's battery shutdown depletion. And so on the 25th, the phone goes out, and there's no location data for April 26th. And it's on April 27th, the morning of April 27th, that David Breaux was found on the bench. Now, the phone was powered back on the same morning that David Breaux was found. You can see in the green column for power up that it was powered on at 4:57 a.m. the same morning David Breaux was found, so that it was powered on just a little bit before he was found. So David Breaux is on this bench, and this is a sheet that the police will talk about and putting over him for his privacy and dignity while he's on the bench. And we're going to talk about some of the physical evidence that is going on at this scene. Because at the scene, you have David Breaux on the bench, you have a blanket on the ground, and this black knife sheath that's on the ground. And on the bench, we have some things that are going to provide some context as to what's going on. You have a backpack here, kind of on the edge, as if to be used as a pillow. You have a scarf that's up on the backpack, a kind of flannel shirt that's underneath Mr. Breaux, kind of strewn out across the laying portion of the bench there. And when we're talking about Mr. Breaux, he has his back up against the bench. And the vast majority of his stab wounds are in his back. And so there's going to be evidence presented, and it's going to come through a forensic pathologist, that these back injuries are not possible in this position because there's a metal bench in the way, and that would stop those stab wounds. And so that this positioning is inconsistent with being attacked in this position just due to the sheer number of wounds and the impossibility of stabbing someone in that mechanism while they're in this position. We're going to have some additional clues of what's going on with Mr. Breaux's attack based on the dirt pattern on his clothing. We can see on the sweater here that it's covered in dirt at the top. And we can see here that he's got an undershirt that also has dirt. Here we can see Mr. Breaux's arm, and we can see that it's not in his sweater sleeve. Okay, so Mr. Breaux is wearing 3 layers. He's wearing a kind of hooded sweatshirt, black underneath. He's got a light-colored long-sleeve shirt underneath. And then the bottom layer is this kind of gray shirt here. So his arms, both of them, are inside his sweater, inside his top layer shirt, but over that kind of bottom layer undershirt. So this is all going to be evidence that is pointing towards that he's sleeping on the bench, that his arms are kind of tucked in within his clothing while he's laying there. Now, as I indicated, Dr. Zhu is going to talk about how the stab injuries on Mr. Breaux are inconsistent with this and more consistent with him actually being laying on his left side on that kind of backpack pillow with the scarf sleeping on the bench rather than being in this position. Additionally, we have this information from the dirt on his clothing. If we look further, we can see that on his right knee, there's a dirt pattern, kind of as if someone is getting up, and then there's dirt on his left leg here. And the dirt on his left leg goes all the way down, as if the left side of his body was completely in the dirt at some point. As far as his clothing here, you can see that he has the dirt on his stomach, and then on his chest, there is no dirt. It's kind of clean where the sweater comes up there. We can see here his arms coming out from under there. And if we advance further, we can see that his top sweater does have clothing. So it's as if he fell off the bench, he's on his stomach getting this dirt on his chest, and the only part of his undershirt is the part where his arms are trying to come out, and that part of his shirt gets dirty as well as the upper layer. Dr. Zhu is going to testify about the injuries that David Breaux sustained. He sustained a total of 31 sharp force injuries, 16 in his torso, 10 in the right arm, and 5 in the right arm. He's going to talk about his expertise as a forensic pathologist and kind of the positioning of the body before, during, and after the assault. And it's going to show that this is not just a quick event, that this is 31 different stabs that are going on to Mr. David Breaux while he's sleeping on the bench, while he's down on the dirt next to the bench, and while he's getting back up to try and defend himself with his arms, and he's getting these injuries on his arm on the bench trying to defend himself before he ultimately expires in that seated position on the bench. Now, as far as crime scenes go, there is very little evidence at this crime scene. In fact, there's one piece of evidence, this knife sheath here. Okay, other than this knife sheath, there's no fingerprints, there's no DNA, there's no witnesses, there's no surveillance video. This is a very clean crime scene, other than this black knife sheath that would have been on the ground in the park in the dark during the course of the stabbing. And it was left behind by Mr. Dominguez. But for being one piece of evidence, and we're going to get the actual knife sheath in, but again, it's a knife sheath that looks just like this. It's kind of got a belt clip on it, and the knife can go inside to protect people from that double-edged blade. It's going to do a lot of talking. So first, the knife is going to tell us that Carlos Riales Dominguez is the person that committed the stabbing. It tells us that not only because we know that he purchased this exact knife and knife sheath from Amazon back on December 5th, but a forensic analysis of the knife sheath finds his DNA on the sheath itself. Second, it's going to show a bit of what happened during the course of the stabbing. It's going to tell us that Mr. Dominguez brought the knife to the scene. Because we know he bought the knife back on December 5th, it would have been brought to the scene. There won't be evidence that Mr. Breaux had a knife or that there was some kind of struggle over Mr. Breaux's knife, that this is a knife that was affirmatively brought by Mr. Dominguez to the scene where the stabbing took place. It's also going to show that from this point forward, when he's walking around with the knife, it's an unsheathed knife. Right? So he no longer has the protective sheath to carry it around, and when he makes the decision to carry around this knife in the future, he's carrying around a double-edged, sharp weapon that's capable of killing humans, and he's doing so not like you carry your phone, wallet, keys. He's doing it because it's going to take extra consideration to carry something that's kind of sharp like this. And it's also going to show that it's that knife that did the killing and not some other knife. And it's not as if Mr. Dominguez has multiple knives and different knives are used during the killing. We know because we have the sheath for the knife at the scene, we know what knife was used for the killing. And that's going to be important because it's going to be informative to us of some of the things that are going on after David Breaux is killed. One of the things that happens after David Breaux is a removal of DNA belonging to Mr. Breaux on the knife. When the knife is ultimately recovered, a criminalist from the Department of Justice conducts an analysis, and they don't just check one area of the knife. They swab 11 different areas of this knife looking for different DNA. and they find Kareem's DNA on there, and they find Kimberly's DNA on there, but David's DNA cannot be identified on this knife. It's the only DNA that is missing from the knife. And so we're going to be able to see that at some point after David is killed, but before Kareem is killed, we have something to be removing all that DNA so that it's not discovered later. The other thing that we know about what's going on with Mr. Dominguez after he kills David is what we know from his phone, and it shows us what's going on the next night. So this is one night after he's killed David, 2 nights still before he's going to kill Kareem. And that's that he went to Sycamore Park. 2 nights before he killed Kareem in Sycamore Park, he went there and he walked around it. So let's talk about what's going on. We talked about the power log, and how after David is killed, the phone is powered on at 4:57. The phone stays on for about 12 hours and dies of battery failure at 4:13. The phone is powered back on again at 11:26, and it's powered off, but not a battery failure, 55 minutes later. And so this is the 55-minute period that Mr. Kumada is going to be talking about, with these points showing that during this time between 11:30 and 20 minutes after midnight, the defendant started in his residence on Hawthorne and then went up to Sycamore Park. And we have all these points that are, again, within 65 meters. This is this precision that goes along with this. And so that is going to be evidence that comes out about whether or not these points are accurate. And these points are all around Sycamore Park at the play structure, and also largely clustered around kind of Sycamore itself and this edge here kind of by Willett. Sorry, Willett is the school that's at the bottom right corner here of the image. Now, this power off event, though, at 21 minutes after midnight, is taking place at Sycamore Park. It's not that he went back home and then decided, hey, time to turn my phone off for the night. The evidence is going to be that he went to Sycamore Park 2 nights before he kills Kareem there, that he's walking around Sycamore Park, and then turns off his phone at what's going to be a murder scene 2 nights later. So 2 nights later, we're at April 29th. And so across from Sycamore Park is Dr. Matthew Massie, and he lives in a house that's right across from Sycamore, and he has some security cameras that have just kind of a very edge view of Sycamore Park. And they're not going to capture anything because the actual killing takes place in the interior of the park, and this shows just kind of the edge of the park. But we're going to hear testimony from Dr. Massie about being at his home, and he's hearing screaming. He's hearing someone yelling for help inside the park. Now, Dr. Massie is unsure as what's going on. He initially thinks that there's been a bicycle collision and that some bicyclists are hurt. And he's a physician, so he goes into the park to assist. And in the park, he finds Kareem, and he finds Carlos Dominguez. And Carlos Dominguez has been stabbing Kareem in the park. And so the testimony is going to establish that this is not a short or a quick assault, that this is a prolonged and sustained assault against Kareem. Because the assault starts, Kareem is yelling for help, Dr. Massie has to realize that something is going on, make the decision to go across the street. He goes across the street and he goes out there and gets there, and the assault is still going on. Mr. Dominguez is still there with Kareem. So Kareem is on the side of the path when officers find him, and Dr. Massie's performing CPR. He's trying to save Kareem's life. And the lighting here is good for a photo, but it's a dark area of the park. Again, there's very poor lighting. It's kind of difficult to see what's going on. In fact, Dr. Massie has to take out his phone and use like the flashlight on his phone to assist him and see what's going on in this area of the park to assist with Kareem. And when Dr. Massie is there, Mr. Dominguez then takes Kareem's bicycle and rides it away. He rides the bike over that bridge that Kareem was going to take, and he takes it down Crystal Grove. Now Kareem has been killed. Dr. Massie spends a significant amount of effort, and the officers tried to perform CPR, and they tried to save him. But he's been stabbed 40 times with an additional 12 incised wounds. So 40 are stabbing punctures, and 12 are like cuts or less deep injuries, for a total of 52 knife wounds over this assault. And the vast majority of these are in his chest, right in the area of his heart. He's also sustaining knife injuries to his neck, to his face, even has one coming in and going in his lip and knocking out one of his teeth and leaving his teeth on the ground there. And so this evidence is going to be that not only is this a sustained assault, but that it's targeted at the vital portions of his body, and that it's taking place with extreme force, enough to knock out a tooth of Kareem. Again, we're going to have a forensic pathologist come in, different doctor for this. They're going to talk about the specific injuries that Kareem suffered, and they're going to talk about the location of these different injuries, and it's going to come with two diagrams as well. We're going to have a documentation of his front and back injuries. So here we have injuries primarily focused on the front and in the chest, and then also injuries to his head, his forehead, the left side of his head, and to his neck. So where's the defendant going after this? Well, after taking Kareem's bicycle in Sycamore Park, he rides across the bridge here and comes down this bike path that's on Crystal Grove Lane, and abandons Kareem's bicycle on the side of the path. And that's ultimately found by officers on the side of the path with no person around it. It's kind of by this bush area here. And so this wall here is kind of the edge to the freeway. And so you have it's kind of to this side between the path and the freeway. On the ground, kind of in this rear area of the bike, is a water bottle. And this water bottle is important because it's going to be one of the few pieces of evidence at the crime scene linking Mr. Dominguez to the stabbing. Now, I told you earlier that Mr. Dominguez's knife has got Kareem's DNA on it, and so that's going to be evidence that's found later. But as far as what's going on April 29th, this is it, because this is Carlos Riales Dominguez's fingerprint in blood on this water bottle that's left here where the bike is left behind. And that's showing that Carlos Riales Dominguez is the person who killed Kareem. But what does he do after this? He's fled the scene, he's abandoned the bike, he's left this piece of evidence, because there's no evidence back at the crime scene of the actual stabbing. The bike and the water bottle is where he's kind of abandoning his property on the run. We have him powering on his phone here. Again, the morning after Kareem is killed, at 11:43, he's powering the phone back up. So what else do we know about kind of what he's doing during this time frame? Well, we know that he's home at different points. We have that location data. And so when officers ultimately search his home, they find different things of suspected blood, meaning that it's red and it's kind of smearing and it looks like blood. But all that's tested actually turns out to not be blood. The officers looked for blood, they tried to find blood in the house, but there was no blood. Which means that Mr. Dominguez, who committed the first stabbing of David Breaux, and the second stabbing with 52 different wounds on Kareem, who left Kareem's bicycle with blood on the handles and blood on the frame because blood was dripping everywhere, managed to get home and not leave any blood anywhere lying around his home that was going to be detected later. In fact, nobody's blood is found at Mr. Dominguez's home or linked to any item in his home. The only places where a victim's blood is found is on the knife and on his clothing that he was wearing when he killed Kimberly, or when he attacked Kimberly, and when he killed Kareem. David Breaux's blood is not on the clothing. It's not detected anywhere. You only have the latter two. So we have kind of this more evidence for the offenses as the offenses are going on. We have Sunday, April 30th. Mr. Dominguez is at his home. on Hawthorne, we just have a bunch of points, no movement showing anywhere on that day. It's a Sunday, so there's no school that day. The next day, though, May 1st, we have more points, and they're going to again correspond with the defendant's schedule. Because we have him, he has Monday, Wednesday classes, and so when we look at his phone and the movement that his phone is doing, it's again to the UC Davis campus. He's just going to class and carrying his phone like he normally does during his time when he's going to his class, and then he's going back from class again. And this is again going to come through Mr. Kumar. So from this point, we can't track what he's doing from his phone anymore, because his phone is there the rest of the day. It's there until 11:58, right? But we know that Kimberly Guillory was stabbed at 11:30, and we're gonna have more location data for May 2nd, the next day. But during the time of the stabbing, he's not brought his phone. He's brought it when he goes to class on multiple occasions, but when he's out again and ultimately stabs Kimberly, he leaves the phone behind. But we do have an idea of what he's doing based on surveillance video that's collected from the downtown area where Kimberly was stabbed. And so you're going to get this chart which kind of lays out different points where he's spotted on different surveillance videos. We're going to walk very briefly through them. First, we're going to look at these green arrows which kind of show movement towards the stabbing, and then blue arrows are going to indicate movement away from the stabbing. And we have arrows 1 and 2 here, and these are at 2nd E, and then here at 2nd G, Illusion Smoke Shop. And these are cameras where Mr. Dominguez is on his bicycle, kind of going down 2nd Street, and he's captured on camera. And Mr. Dominguez rides a kind of distinctive bicycle. It's got these white rear frames and a white front fork. And it's a bicycle that is really identifiable on these various surveillance videos. But from this point, he's not seen on bicycle headed towards the stabbing anymore. After 2nd G, we have kind of a train station here, and it is possible, and you'll see from the photos, it's possible to kind of tuck in this train station and follow the train tracks up to where the stabbing actually takes place. So this movement here towards the stabbing is taking place at around 11 p.m. From there, we have movement again at 11:06 at 320 K Street. Now, if we look here, 320 K Street is a building that is just off the scene here. It's at the top, and it's a camera that kind of looks south. And it's a dark night, and it's a really long view for a surveillance camera. So this surveillance camera is not like the other two where it's clear enough that you can identify someone. It's showing silhouettes, right? You can't tell man, woman, anything about the individual other than that it's someone and that they're walking. And you see somebody walking down 3rd towards the encampment, and that takes place at 11:06. And then you see someone walking back from the encampment the other direction, and that takes place at 11:08. So this is going to be important. You're going to hear from one of the unhoused persons living in that encampment by the name of Alberto Orozco, and he's going to talk about how he saw an individual at the encampment 20 minutes before the stabbing. And he's going to talk about how that person was wearing a black sweatshirt and Adidas pants with white stripes on them, which is exactly the clothing that the defendant was wearing during this time. And that the person that Mr. Orozco saw wearing that distinctive clothing did that walk where they're coming up L, away from the encampment, and then down 3rd, away from the encampment. 4 minutes later, the defendant is identifiable by his pants on this surveillance. It's at the SPCA Goodwill over at 3rd and I, here at this corner. And so there's kind of a few blocks. It's about a 4-minute walk. And this camera is an interior camera from the shop, and it kind of has a view that through some glass doors, and so you'll be able to see the area. It's kind of right in front of the shop. And you'll see Mr. Dominguez, he's walking westbound on 3rd Street. As he's walking, a car comes the other way, and Mr. Dominguez turns around and then heads back towards where the encampment is. The next 20 minutes or so, Mr. Dominguez is somewhere in the area, but he's not on any cameras. We know that he's on foot because we saw him at the SPCA thrift shop, and we know that he's still in the area because the stabbing hasn't occurred yet. He's somewhere in the area of L between 2nd and 3rd, where this substation is and the stabbing occurs, and where he was last seen at the thrift shop. But then, at 11:36, we again see kind of a silhouette from that 320 K Street camera coming by. Then Kimberly is stabbed. Now Kimberly is, at the time of this, living in a tent. So you have the substation in the back here, and her tent is just off the sidewalk here. There's about a foot or so of dirt in between her tent and the sidewalk. And this is the walking path, so that someone coming past that 320 K Street camera would be coming to the right, and then down this way. So the person would have walked from the bottom of this picture up toward the top. And Kimberly is in this portion of the tent, and she's sitting with her back up against the side of the tent, and she's on a tablet. Just like the other two scenes, this scene is dark. You're going to see some body camera videos from the officers, and you'll see them with their flashlights and how dark it is when they're not shining their lights. But Kimberly has a light. The light is coming from the tablet that she's looking at, and it's right in front of her as her back is up against the tent, and it's casting her shadow on the back wall of the tent here. And so the person walking here, Mr. Dominguez, can see exactly where Kimberly is in that tent because she's lit up on the side of the tent. Now he comes in, takes the knife, and stabs her twice through the tent wall. Pandemonium ensues. Okay? There's been multiple stabbings in Davis, and people have been on edge, including unhoused people. One of the unhoused people goes in to try and defend her, Mr. Chessman, and he actually ends up going to the wrong tent, thinking that he's defending her, and punching another unhoused person because he thinks he's trying to fend off this attacker. But again, we have Mr. Orozco, who sees what's going on and sees the defendant running from the scene, and he sees him running back the way he came down L Street towards 3rd Street. Miss Guillory has holes in her tent that are very big, and you're kind of going to see that this is because she has to be extracted from the tent, and so the tent is ripping in different portions on the seam. So this side of the tent is not the entrance. This is the side wall of the tent, and the entrance is around the side. Okay, you're going to see that we have the exact same make model tent in a non-ripped up form, a demonstrative, that we can set up, and you'll see that this kind of gray top here is a rain fly that goes over the bottom portion here. Because on this night, not only was it dark, it was raining at the time that she was attacked. It's also going to be instructed as to what the height is for this stabbing, and that it's not a stabbing that happens at this height, but it's a lower stabbing, because you'll see how high the rain fly is and that it doesn't have holes in it, and you'll see that it's a stabbing down here on Miss Guillory as she's in the tent. So what do we know of movements after that? We have back to 320 K Street. Now this time, instead of a walking silhouette, we have a running silhouette running westbound on 3rd Street. From westbound on 3rd Street, there is an interruption of just a few minutes, 3 minutes in fact, and then we have the defendant now back on his bicycle, riding his bicycle past Davis Glass here on 3rd Street. He's kind of on the far side of the street riding his glass, riding his bike. He then makes a left turn here onto 8th Street, and this turn we're going to see from a surveillance video that's from this Ace Hardware, that's in Ace Hardware parking lot. This one is, again, kind of a distance shot, so it's not one an identification can be made from. But you'll see that the defendant just passed David's glass and is now at the hardware store riding his bike, and he rides south on H. And from there, disappears for 5 minutes. Okay, so Ace Hardware, he's seen at 11:45. He's not seen back at the Illusion Smoke Shop until about 11:50. What's also going on here is that he's coming down H Street, but then when he's next seen, he's seen coming down G Street and making a turn here onto 3rd. So he doesn't come down H and turn here on the 3rd. At some point, he cuts through these parking lots or city block here between 3rd, 2nd, G, and H. Okay? And it's kind of a long period of time for him to be cut out, and we can see when he reappears on G Street here that something has changed. His bike is now disabled. The chain or something has come off the bike, and he's not able to pedal the bike anymore. Something happened cutting through this area here where his bike isn't working anymore. And he's on the seat, and he's kind of just pushing the bicycle along with his feet, getting away from the scene with that. And he continues down 2nd Street all the way into the UC Davis campus. And he's picked up by several different surveillance videos. Again, Illusion Smoke Shop, 2nd and Half, Blue Peak Credit Union, Helmets Optometry, and then finally he's on the UC Davis campus. On the UC Davis campus, he comes across 8th Street, and he's here by Taylor Hall, and then goes north along the walkway that's on the east side of Memorial Union. And there's a sort of Taylor Hall kind of blue light phone camera that picks all this up that's located right outside Taylor Hall. Now, just a few minutes later, after coming up Taylor Hall, he comes back again into view, southbound on the same walkway, in front of these ATMs. So if we look at Taylor Hall, or at Memorial Union, this is the side view of Memorial Union, you can see that there's these ATMs here. It comes back down through the ATMs, and it comes around this corner, kind of into this alcove here. And so this is kind of a tucked-in little utility area, and he comes into that utility area, goes to the back, turns around, and then starts trying to fix his bike, trying to get it back in working order. And we're going to see this from that same Taylor Hall surveillance, and this is kind of a zoomed-in shot. You can see if there's a light pole in the way. But what you're going to see is that he pulls in his bike here, and he's kind of leaning over the bike, working something in the chain area of the bike, getting his bike into sorts. It doesn't work. He's not able to get his bike fixed. And then he walks around the side of Memorial Union, starts checking doors, starts trying to find a way to get in there, goes off camera, and then his movements aren't being tracked. He's not on camera again, and again, his phone is at home, and so it's not giving information as to where he's at. So what's going on after this 3rd incident where he's attacked Kimberly Guillory? When she was attacked, her kidney was lacerated, and she was taken away by paramedics. They were able to save her. And she's actually going to come in and she's going to testify. She's going to talk to us about that experience. But Mr. Dominguez, he's got class the next day. So the next day, he's now carrying his phone again. He takes his phone, and he goes down to class, and he's down in the area where his classes are. This time, actually, while he's at his classes, he shuts down his phone again while at class. And then his movement information is not followed from that point. So Kimberly was stabbed 11:30 on May 1st. At this point, you'll hear information about kind of what was going on in the city of Davis after 3 different stabbings, including 2 fatal. And this is going to be that everyone was borderline panicked, that people were concerned for their safety. They were scared to go out at night. People were scared to go in parks. People were scared that anyone could be stabbed because so far 3 strangers had been stabbed with no apparent reason. Officers were able to get descriptions based on Dr. Massie and from the surveillance video downtown. We're able to put out kind of descriptions of this person with long curly hair who is suspected to have committed these stabbings. And the city of Davis responds. People are being called in left and right as possible suspects. Anytime someone sees anyone anywhere near that description, the officer's getting called, and they're going call to call, doing nothing but responding to people's reports of having spotted the individual that is responsible, and officers are having to contact each of these individuals and check out, is this the person? Is this the person? Is this the person? So on May 3rd, one of those calls comes in from Justin Schaefer. Justin Schaefer is at Sycamore Park, and he sees the defendant in the kind of play structure area. We saw this earlier when we saw the points within Sycamore Park, but he's in the play area, kind of sitting, watching. Something doesn't seem right. He's wearing clothing and looking similar to the person that committed the stabbing, so Justin Schaefer calls it in. Now, Davis PD is not ignoring Mr. Schaefer, but they are very swamped, and so they're getting units over there, and it's going to be a minute before they get there. And so Justin Schaefer does his civic duty, and he's watching this person and responding with updates. And when Mr. Dominguez notices Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Dominguez leaves, and Mr. Schaefer follows. So they go up to the Safeway that's here. If you go up Safeway and you go into this kind of shopping area that's right here by the freeway by Covell, there's a Safeway shopping center, and the defendant goes inside. And so we have surveillance video from within the Safeway. We can see his movements of what he's doing inside the Safeway. And he's walking around and he's shopping. He's going to different shelves, and he's selecting items, and he's putting them in his bag. And he's carrying this bag in his hand. The thing about this bag is, he again doesn't have his phone. His phone is back at his house again. He doesn't have his wallet, keys, phone. The things that he is carrying is that shopping bag, and inside that shopping bag is a bloody knife. And that's all he brought out for his trip out to Sycamore Park on the 3rd. And when he walks away from the park and Justin Schaefer is following, he goes into Safeway and he's selecting items, he's putting them into the bag. And you'll see he's walking fine, he's able to steer around people, he has no issue selecting items, and you'll be able to see his movements and how he selects items in the store. He selects them, and then he walks out without paying and goes out of the store, because again, he doesn't have a wallet, he doesn't have any cash. He left anything like that back at his house. So after he leaves Safeway, he comes back down and he comes to this area here where you have like Pine, Villanova, Colby here, and he's walking back towards his house on Hawthorne, which is down towards the bottom of the map. And the officers show up. It's Officers Gonzalez and Story. And first they call out to him and say, hey, can we talk to you? But they're behind him, and he keeps walking down the street. And one of the officers gets in front of him with a cart, gets out, says, hey, can we talk to you? And the defendant stops and talks with him. And you'll see this video, this is a body camera recording, and you'll see that he's making eye contact with the officers, that he's having a conversation with him, that he's asking him things like, why do you need my information? And he's acting like people tend to act during police contacts. The thing is, and I told you this, and so you know, and he knew, there's a knife in that bag. The knife is in that bag. And he's got the things that he's taken from the grocery store in that bag. And so you're going to see his mannerisms with this bag. Because as he's talking to the officers, you'll be able to see him even pull up his bag and kind of look inside to see, can this knife be seen in this bag? You'll see him looking down inside of it. And the officers are talking to him. They explain to them why they're stopping him, that there's been a series of homicides and that people are calling in, those who match the descriptions, and they're asking about what's going on. And the defendant is lying the entire time. They ask him for his name, and he tells them his name is John Joas, completely made-up name. They ask him for his date of birth, and he takes his date of birth and he tweaks it. Instead of telling them 10/5 of 02, he tells them 10/10 of 99. So close, it's just tweaking the details. They ask him his address, And instead of 762 Hawthorne, he tells them 782 Hawthorne. Okay? 782 Hawthorne doesn't exist. When the officers are trying to verify what's going on with him, they ask him things like, hey, do you live with anyone? He tells them no. And he says, well, actually, I do have roommates, I just don't talk to them. So the officers, at one point, they ask him, can we see your hands? You know, the person they're looking for has been involved in several stabbings with a sharp object. They'd like to see if there's injuries on his hands. And so at this point, the defendant's got the bag in his hand, and he actually goes down as if to set it on the ground, and then stops, because the bag has no handles, it's not closed. As soon as you set it on the ground, it's kind of open up, and you'll see the knife. And he actually stops himself from doing that, and shows them his hands while holding the bag, so that he's got a grip on that bag. Now, officers interviewing him are noting all these suspicious things, and ultimately decide, hey, we got to search this guy for weapons. And the officer comes in to do a search. They're starting the search and spot the knife in the bag. They put him in handcuffs and secure him at the scene. He's sitting there on the curb for a while, and officers are still trying to figure out who he is. He tells them again that he lives at 782. Okay? Again, that doesn't exist. Officers are trying to figure out who he is. They ask him his name again. He tells them again his name is John Jones. And the officers can see that he's not being entirely honest about what's going on, and they're trying to get the information as to what this is, because this is not the first person they've dealt with, right? They've been contacting people all over the city of Davis trying to eliminate them, and they're trying to see, is this the person or is it not? And officers eventually talk to him and say, hey, why don't we come down to the police station and talk about what's going on, because there's a lot going on. The officers have seen the knife, they see the cuts on his hands, they see that he matches the description, that long hair with his Adidas track pants and what's going on. And you'll see kind of the progression through this interview at the scene. You'll see where we have him at Safeway, he's walking around. You'll see his initial contact with the officers, where he's making eye contact and asking questions and providing responses. And then the cuffs come on, the detectives come out, they talk to him, they take off the cuffs to interview him. But the knife's been found, and everything starts shutting down. He stops asking questions, he stops being as responsive. He's still lying to them about the information, despite them saying, we just don't believe you if this is your name. And he starts shutting down his emotions and blocking out and starts staring off and not talking to the officers. And we have this kind of closing off of the defendant. So hopefully this has given you kind of the broad picture of what's going on. And so when you see a witness coming in, and they're coming in the middle of something that we're talking about, Central Park, and suddenly they're talking about being on L Street between 3rd and 2nd when Kimberly was stabbed, it's going to fit in, and you're going to be able to switch gears and say, hey, we're talking about this stabbing, we're talking about that stabbing, we're talking about what's going on. But at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning, the evidence is going to be that the defendant not only stabbed David Breaux, not only did he still stab Kareem, not only did he stab Kimberly, but for each of those that he did so willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation, and I'll ask you to find him guilty. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vanderhook. That concludes the people's opening statement. So we are going to take a break now. The break is 15 minutes. Let me walk you through this, how we're going to do breaks. And so generally, they're 15 minutes, and when you come back in, try to come back in sequence 1 through 18. It makes it a lot easier for you. Each break, I admonish, and it becomes part of everything that we're doing. Don't form any opinions, don't discuss, don't research, right? We're going to take a break now. We're going to invite Mr. Hutchinson to do defense opening statement when we return. And we'll end up taking a hard break at noon, from noon until 1:30. So this is just a 15-minute break. Wear your badges and enjoy your break. Thank you. Counsel, enjoy your break. Okay, off the record.